The meeting to order, and I call on our treasurer, Mr. Bertram, to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Snow is absent this evening. Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mrs. Stewart?
Here.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Here.
Dr. Urso?
Here. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions. Mr. Bertram?
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes. Does not appear to be any public participation. Which gets us to our presentation this evening. We have a presentation on modernizing the elementary experience. We get to welcome Miss Karen Jackson from Wolpert.
I'm going to start off.
Perfect.
And then I'm going to turn it over to Karen.
You have to find my mouse down.
All set to go? So, good evening, board members, staff members over there that joined us in person tonight, and everyone joining us on YouTube. I'm excited to share with you this evening a redistricting plan that's going to modernize how we service our students in K through 6, beginning in the 25-26 school year. So this is a pretty pivotal moment for our district and our journey to strengthen our school community and how we service our students. It's been 13 years since we as a district have looked at, if we've done any kind of redistricting analysis. That 13 years, can't hear mine not on? Oh, there we go. Thank you, Ms. Businger. So it's been 13 years since we've done any kind of redistricting analysis. And let's just think back, and that 13 years was when Highview moved from a K-5 to a 6th grade center. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that later on. But just think about Middletown in the past 13 years. You know, really, we've seen some population densities evolve throughout the past 13 years. We've built an expansion on one of our elementary buildings. We lived through a pandemic, and we're also operating under new laws from the state of Ohio. So in the past 13 years, our education landscape has changed quite a bit. So we understand the decision to redistrict it's impactful. You know, it's impactful for our students, it's impactful for the community and our staff members. But really redistricting is more than boundaries, you know, looking at boundaries. It's really about establishing connections, you know, at the schoolhouse and really doing school better and serving our students in a more efficient and equitable way. So tonight I'm going to share with you the why, you know, of the redistricting and share with you the 3 guiding principles that we'll be using as we're moving through the redistricting project. And then after that, I'm going to turn it over to Karen Jackson from Wolpert. Karen is a kindergarten through 12 data analyst that helps school districts. She's done this for hundreds of school districts with their redistricting. I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's going to walk us through all of it, the data collection, the process, the timeline, and really how we're going to move from now into the 25-26 school year, being able to start this. Am I clicking myself, or
Yes.
Are you banning?
You.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so let's just talk about the 3 design principles. Very clear set as we're moving through the work. The first one is that we're going to ensure student success through a strong sense of community. And that's really creating an environment where all of our students thrive academically and socially. So number 2, ensure that students attend neighborhood schools. Everything we know about students attending neighborhood schools is about strong connections to peers, to staff, to the community. And really you see more family involvement when students are in their neighborhood schools. Our 3rd guiding principle is optimal utilization of our district resources and facilities. So, you know, as we're going through the principles, you know, at the end of the day, we also need to be very responsible when it comes to our finances and resources. So let's just look at the first one. So student success through a strong sense of community. So I've mentioned that we have not done any type of redistricting analysis since 2011. Okay, so since 2011, amongst our elementary schools, we have experienced some enrollment spikes in some of the schools, and then just the opposite in some of the other schools. So the capacities of some of our elementaries are running a little low, and we have some that are on the upper end. But this gives us the opportunity to really level and balance out our resources. Also, second point, and really this is one of the cornerstones of the plan, is a seamless learning experience for our kindergarten through 6th grade students. So when we talk about that, when I talk seamless, that means fewer transitions. Right now, our 6th graders experience 3 transitions before they get to high school. They leave the elementary building from 5th and they go to 6th. Then they go from the 6th grade center, they go to middle school, then they go from middle school and they go to high school. Well, everything we know about education, consistency is the key. So really with the plan that we're proposing, our K through 6 students will be able to remain in the same building, maintain the safety and security of the neighborhood school, and will minimize the transitions between buildings between 6th grade through high school. So the next one, attending neighborhood schools. So I've said already quite a bit about this. This is one of the most significant benefits. Our students will be able to attend their neighborhood schools. Once again, that's family engagement. When you see family engagement, you see increased student success, you see increased student buy-in, and really it's that sense of belonging and stability. It's all about the relationships that we talk so much about in education and how important that is. And then also, there is a cost-saving measure when it comes to having students in their neighborhood schools. You have students on their buses, less amount of time. Well, shoot, some of them now could walk to school. So now we have additional walkers. You have students on buses, less amount of time. If you're transporting students, a less amount of time, that's reduced fuel, that's reduced maintenance, and it all comes out. So there is a cost savings with students in their neighborhood schools. And just a little side note and FYI, one bus route is, at this point in time this year, is $117,000. So as we're moving forward and we consider how busing plays into the redistricting plan, so there's a cost savings with the buses, and then we all know there's a bus driver shortage, so that all goes into play as we're moving through and we're planning for this 25-26 redistricting of our K-6. And then we have the third guiding principle, and that once again is the optimal utilization of our district resources and facilities. So a redistricting allows us to ensure efficient use of our district resources. So we will have a more equitable distribution of our students in the buildings. So we won't have underutilized buildings where we're have to spend additional dollars because of underutilization, or it also prevents us from having to do any type of expansions on our elementary buildings. So really it's looking at how we use our resources. And Karen's gonna, and you'll see when Karen comes up here to share information with you, you'll see what we're talking about. And she'll talk to you about the maximum capacity of buildings where you get that optimal utilization. Let's see. And then of course the savings that would be part of the redistricting plan could then be in turn spent back with the students, students' achievement, and then on the staff for professional development, for training. It's reinvested in our students and their well-being. Okay? So, before I go on, just wanted to mention just a little, this is sort of a history lesson around Highview 6th grade center, because many people, this will be the question about Highview. They'll wonder, why have we brought Highview 6th graders back into the K-5? I shared with you already, there's plenty of research out there that talks about the seamless transition in education. The fewer the transitions, the better. There's plenty of research out there also that supports our sixth graders back in the K-5 configuration. But this is a history lesson, and I'm really not sure how many people know what was behind the Highview Sixth Grade Center. But back in 2011, that's when our district was in the financial trouble. We were in financial trouble. That's back when our teachers had to take the 1% pay decrease. We saw pay freezes. That's when we wound up outsourcing our transportation. We had massive layoffs back in 2011. That was a time where we really had to cut millions of dollars. And part of those cuts, we had to close a building. And that's when we made the decision that's back when sixth grade was in Vail and Verity. Remember those? Vail and Verity? Okay, so that's when the decision was made. It was we needed to close a building. So that's when Highview became a sixth grade center. And that's when we took the K-5 students, we moved out to the other elementary buildings. Okay, the intention has always been to get our sixth graders back into a continuum of the grade levels. So then let's just fast forward a little bit. So if you fast forward, then the new middle school was built. Okay, the state allocated dollars for 7th and 8th grade. If we wanted to include sixth grade with our middle school, we would have had to fund that 100%. So we would have had to go to the taxpayer for additional levy dollars. Okay? So Highview remained a sixth grade building. Well, the good news is now we have room, and you're going to see that when Karen shares information with you tonight. We have room for our sixth graders to go back to the K-5 configuration. And also just a reminder, we do have K-6 at our Central Academy building. And they've been K-6 for quite a while, and that's worked quite well for them at Central Academy. So why redistrict now? Because it's been 13 years since we've looked at this. I think after you see what Karen's going to share with you this evening, it is time. There's a clear need to redistrict and look at how the configuration of our buildings and how we're utilizing our elementary buildings. And really it comes down to servicing our students in a better, more efficient and equitable way. And then also at the same time, it's really about being fiscal stewards of the dollar. So and that's what she's going to share with you tonight. Karen, you ready to come up? Okay. Yeah, you can come all the way up. All the way up. So like I said, Karen is, she's a K-12 data analyst from Woolpert. And I think she's going to share with you all about Woolpert, right? That's part of your presentation. And walk us through step by step the plan that will allow us really to modernize how we're doing things in K through 6 for the 25-26 school year.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no problem.
And then also, I'd like to mention that the Woolpert contract is on the board agenda this evening. It's under business, but if you have any questions, if we can ask Karen after her presentation, because she needs to drive 3 hours home tonight. She can get back on the
I
road.
live in Athens.
She's an Athens, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll get on 71 for like, I don't know, 10 minutes and then hop back on for Chillicothe. All right, well, thanks for having me tonight. I'm excited to present this with you. We're going to be going through first an introduction of me and then kind of what we're going to look at for the process and then some background information, which I think is really fascinating.
Is it not working?
There it is.
No, it's probably, oh, there it went.
Okay. All right. So Woolpert is actually based in Dayton, Ohio. As I mentioned, I do live in Athens, but the majority of our company exists in Dayton. We do this work all over the country. So while we do exist in Ohio, we do a lot of work outside of Ohio. My sole job is redistricting and housing studies. So I know a lot about redistricting. I've been doing it for almost 10 years now. And I also do housing studies and enrollment projections, which play right into this demographic process. Am I clicking the wrong thing? This does not like me.
There you go.
Awesome.
I might have to click for it.
Okay, I'll just let you know. This is our overall redistricting process. I do have a slide for each of these, so I'm just gonna kind of breeze past this. That was convenient, but I did not mean to do that.
I didn't do anything.
It might do that on its own. It does that sometimes. So we'll start off the process with reviewing data and analyzing that data. Part of what we're doing with this process is an enrollment projection that's going to look at projecting your enrollment for the next 10 years at the grade level. So we talked a lot about doing this at the by school level. Unfortunately, as soon as we change boundaries, everything changes. So those projections will not even make sense next year because the enrollments will change. So we're going to do enrollment projections at the, go back. Sorry. We'll do enrollment projections at the district-wide level. We are also, with that, we'll look at Census and American Community Survey data sets, but the enrollment projections will be based on your historical enrollment and the births that are occurring within your district. We're also taking a look at housing developments. We're in a good place with the housing developments because the majority of the bigger ones are hitting outside of the district, elsewhere in the county, so we're in pretty good shape there, but those are going to be at the forefront of this conversation because we want to make sure that if we are changing boundaries, we do so with longevity in mind. We really want to make sure that these are going to last. Nobody wants to redistrict and then just do it again in the next couple of years. So we want to be one and done. We also took a look at the capacities of your buildings and came up with a program capacity, which I'll get into a little bit later, but essentially what we did is we looked at all the programs within your building, within your schools, as well as like the additional spaces that are necessary within each building, such as like Title I spaces, resource rooms, things like that. And we have a capacity number that reflects the programs that exist within the buildings, which I'll be sharing later. I'll also be sharing information about our project website later, but we do have a project website where all information related to this process will land. We've already loaded the presentation from tonight, and as we come up with more information, as questions are asked, they will be filled in within the project website, so the community members can go in and see exactly what we're working with, what's going on, and when they can provide feedback. Next slide. If I can get it. I guess there's, yeah. So the next step of this process is going to be planning, figuring out what boundary planning criteria we're going to work with. We can draw the boundaries in millions of different ways. There is no end to the number of options we can come up with, but we really want to tailor this to what your community wants in a boundary plan, whether that's keeping neighborhoods together, using major roads as boundary lines, assigning students to their closest school where possible, and so on. So we do have a survey that will be, it's already open actually, where folks can go onto the website, they can open the survey and tell us what they think about boundaries, how the boundaries should be drawn. We have 6 or 7 different criteria that they can pick from. We also have a section where folks can say, okay, none of these apply to me. This is what I would like to see in a boundary plan. It's an open-ended question. Along with that, we're asking for folks to ask their questions within the survey. They will not be answered within the survey. There's no way for me to respond to them, but it'll be used to fill in the FAQ section of our project website. So we'll be taking those and then putting them on the website for everybody to see. Did I do that?
I think we did at the same time, so
Okay,
I don't know who
perfect.
gets credit.
So once we have our criteria, the way that we're going to draw our boundaries, then we start making boundary scenarios. The boundary scenarios, like I said, will be created using that feedback from the criteria survey. They're intended to encourage feedback and generate conversation.
Did you do that?
I did not.
Okay.
And they're all going to have different levels of effectiveness. When we get to the community meetings, which I guess we can go to now, what we want to do is bring 3 to 5 options that look very different. If we bring options that all look the same to the community, we're just going to get the same feedback, and it's great for one option, it's useless for the others. So what we like to do is provide a couple different options that show different ways that we can solve the problem using that criteria, and then let the community respond to that as well. Once we get feedback from the community, which we'll be holding open houses an open house I think in December, for folks to come in and view big versions of the map, have conversations with us about why certain decisions were made, what all this means, and so on. We'll have a survey associated with that where people can provide their feedback, and then we go back to the drawing board. So we'll take that feedback, look at what it says, look at it geographically. We usually ask for an address so we can pinpoint which neighborhoods are saying what within the survey, and then try to accommodate that as much as possible within our recommendation. So Once we've done all that, we will come back to you with a recommendation. The recommendation, we're trying to get it to align with our criteria as much as possible, along with the community feedback as much as possible, and then we will ask you to vote on that. So we're anticipating that'll happen sometime in late January or early February. This is our overall timeline. This is subject to change throughout the process, so keep that in mind. But this is kind of how we're going to get through this process at the highest level. I do just want to go over the stakeholder roles within this process. We have our greater community. Their job is to inform the recommendation and guide the process using we'll use their feedback throughout the process to kind of guide what options look like and then eventually what our recommendation looks like. Our administrative team will be working directly with me. We will be making the recommendation and steering and promoting the process. I'm going to rely on district staff to promote the process. As a consultant, I can't do that much on my own, but the staff is really going to be integral throughout the whole process, making sure that we are aligning with district goals along with the criteria and community feedback. And then lastly is you all. Your job is to approve the recommendation and oversee the process. From you, we're expecting high-level feedback about boundary concepts and options throughout. So we will more than likely toward the end of the process have like one-on-one meetings where you can meet with me individually and we can go through exactly what is going on. And we're certainly open to having more of those throughout the process if you want more than just one at the end. See, it's working there.
Yeah.
So here's the exciting part. I'm next going to share some data sets related to redistricting, kind of what we're looking at today with the current state of the schools, and what can you expect moving forward. So I first want to go over our capacity study. Like I said, what we did is we looked at every school and the district provided us with what each room is used for, and we then came up with a capacity that follows that programmatic use at each building. On the left, we have the class sizes by grade level, so kindergarten up through 6th grade, and then any special education class was given a capacity of 12 because we cannot fit as many students on IEPs in the same room altogether. So when we look at this, we get capacities anywhere from 350 at Central Academy up to, I think, 661 at Amanda Elementary. But this information will all be on the project website as well, so you'll be able to review it and see what's going on in each building.
Rosa Parks is the highest, 897.
Oh, it sure is, yeah. 897 is Rosa Parks. That's a big one. So this map shows your current boundaries. So these are the boundaries as they exist today and your utilizations. So I want to explain this chart for a second. The program capacity for each school, that's what we just talked about. Those are those numbers that we came up with. The K-5 live-in enrollment are the number of K through 5 students that live within the boundaries. You do not have a lot of students transferring between the school that they're assigned to a different building. I'll show that in a little bit, but the live-in enrollment is very close to those who attend the building. So the utilization number is just the enrollment divided by the capacity. So looking at the 24-25 K-5 utilization, that middle column, the colorful one, that is showing what your buildings are utilized at today. If you look down at the bottom, overall at the elementary level, even when we don't include the capacity at Highview, we are looking at 57% utilized at your elementary schools. Now, in any facilities planning process, we usually use 80 to 85% as like our guiding star utilization where we want to be at every elementary school. So, oops.
You need to go back. Yeah.
So, looking at the K-6 living enrollment column, this is the same information, but including those 6th graders that live within each boundary. So we've already taken your student data and plotted every student on the map, which I'll get to in a moment. So if you look at the 24-25 K through 6 utilization, those are the utilizations if today every 6th grader went back to their neighborhood school. That's what it would look like. So we are still overall at the elementary level, even when we include Highview, we're at 66% utilized at the elementary level. Again, 80 to 85% is our ideal utilization. We could take one school offline, completely offline, and still be in great shape overall at the elementary level. We could take 2 schools offline at the elementary level and still be in great shape. So keep that in mind as we go through this process. We are we are looking at the utilizations kind of as, at a district-wide level at this point because everything is, how do I say this? Nothing is off the table right now. So, looking at our next chart, so the chart on the left shows a live-attend analysis, and what this is showing is where students live versus where they reside. So, the rows are showing where students live. Can I walk in?
Sure, of course you can, yeah.
Maybe.
Our cameraman will follow you.
Okay. Thank you. So, the rows show where students live. So, everyone residing in the boundary, or in the rows, everyone who attends the school, or in the columns. So, Amanda Elementary is a good example. There are 369 K through 5 students that live in the Amanda boundary and also attend Amanda Elementary. There's 6 that live in the Amanda boundary that attend Creekview, 3 that live in the Amanda boundary and attend Mayfield, and so on. So you can read it both vertically and horizontally. Looking at Central Academy, you can see they pull a good number of students from every single boundary. They pull 58 sixth graders from Highview. So Highview right now doesn't have a boundary, just the greater district-wide boundary. So that's why this one's kind of separated. And then we have our out-of-district kids. With this, the most important thing to look at is, okay, we don't have, other than Central Academy, we really don't have students, for the most part, transferring from school to school. The vast majority of our students are attending where they are assigned. If you look at the student density chart, this is showing the actual student density of your 24-25 K through 12 students. So anything in blue is going to be lower student density or less than 100 students per square mile. Anything in red is up to 1,900 students per square mile. So this definitely comes into play when we're looking at boundaries. Whoever takes on some of these hotspots is not going to have a lot of room for other students beyond that. So just keep that in mind as we're drawing boundaries. Density is not the same throughout the district. There are hotspots that we're going to have to take into account. Okay, so these last two show what the boundaries would look like if every student attended their geographically closest school. This is something that always comes up in these processes. Folks just want to go to the closest school to them, which is it's absolutely valid feedback. For the most part, we can accomplish this. It cannot happen for everybody. So what this is showing is the background colors are showing the attendance boundaries should every student be assigned to their geographically closest school based on road network. The purple lines are showing your existing schools, so for the most part, you're really following those very well. Unfortunately, if we were to have every student attend their geographically closest school, Mayfield would be utilized at 117%, and poor Miller Ridge up on the north side would be utilized at 21%. So keep that in mind. It is going to come up throughout this process. While it is something we're looking at and we want to assign students to their closest school where possible, it cannot happen for every single student. The next slide shows the same information, but when we include Highview in the mix. So again, this cannot be an option. Mayfield and, well, Central's a different story, but Mayfield would still be overutilized even when we bring Highview into the picture. So at any level, we cannot assign students to their geographically closest school wholesale for the entire district. We will try to get as many as possible, but it's just not going to be possible for everyone. So moving on to our survey. Our survey is live right now, so folks can go in and answer it, and I do have a QR code in the next slide if people want to see that. All we're asking is for folks to respond to which criteria they want to see move forward in any boundary plan. These are all of our examples. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but these are what folks are asked. If they have criteria beyond this, like I said, there is an open-ended question for folks to respond with their criteria in there, and we'll use this information to inform how we draw our initial boundary scenarios. So, as I said before, here's the survey, there's the QR code. If you go to the link for the survey, there is a Spanish version available now. You just scroll down through the intro paragraph and it's right there. So folks can take it in English or Spanish, and I believe it closes 2 weeks from now. So please, 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 even if you will not be impacted by this process, like middle school, high school families, please still respond. We want your feedback. This is a district-wide process. It's not just limited to those who it's impacting.
Survey monkey.
It is a survey monkey, yep. And then lastly is our project website. So the project website will hold all the information related to this process, data sets we're using, any resources that we create throughout the process will be on there, as well as the FAQ page. As I mentioned before, the criteria survey does have a section for folks to ask their questions. I will not be answering it directly to them, but we will be answering them on the FAQ page should it show up enough. This will be available throughout the entirety of the process. This is also live already, so you can go ahead and take a look at it. It's pretty bare bones right now because we are just getting started, but it is there as a resource for people to go in and see what's going on, what decisions were made, and so on. And that is all I have. Are there any questions about any? And we can go back to the data sets too.
I had a question. We have a preschool center that is an older building. Is that being considered when you're looking at these things? When I hear like buildings capacity, knowing that, I mean, we will have decisions perhaps that might look at closing a building. Are we considering some of the? For us, it would be our oldest building.
Mm-hmm.
Is that being considered also within this process? I noticed it wasn't within the data sets because it's preschool.
Yeah.
And of course, it wouldn't be within our K-12 kind of arrangement.
Yeah, so that's its own conversation.
But
Oh, go ahead.
we have talked about that with the preschool center. Karen's aware that we have the ELC and really sort of the history around some of our buildings. So that would possibly be,
Yeah.
something we'd be faced with.
And
Yeah,
then,
it's not something that we're drawing boundaries
As far,
for, but
yeah.
it is on our radar.
okay, could that possibly impact the boundaries though? And I know this is kind of getting down the road, so maybe this is a question for a month out, 2 months out. I did have a question. When you look at Highview's capacity of 625, I think is what you had it listed. Does that fluctuate depending on if it's a K-12 or if it's just a sixth grade center?
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
so what would it, and so was that within the data set and I just missed it in regards to what would Highview's capacity be if it is a K-6 building and not just a sixth grade center?
The number that you saw, I think it's
We're good.
625
Yeah.
on that building, that is representative of a K-6 building.
K-6 building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but the numbers would change if it's just sixth grade because sixth grade has a higher class size than our
Correct.
K through second graders.
Yeah. The project website, and
Mhm.
that can be found from our district website, of course?
I believe it's going to be
Yeah.
linked, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We want easy access to that.
Yeah.
Questions?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, Hy-Vee's just showing K through 6 capacity value.
6 and 4.
So that's showing the capacity for an elementary building, it's not the current sixth grade?
Correct.
Correct.
Or K6.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
As a sixth grade building, I would expect it to be like 20 to 40 students higher, probably.
And I don't, like in terms of like, auxiliary services too, are those factored in terms of space? And so I would imagine a K-6 building would have, I guess, more spaces. I don't know how all those things, that's why we hire
Yeah,
folks like you.
right.
But just trying to think through that process that,
And that's reflected on your first data set, I believe, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if you're interested in the capacity calculations, we will have a report on the website with information on how exactly it's calculated at each level. But we are taking in things like special ed spaces, any resource rooms or intervention spaces are not given a capacity because those are full-out spaces. Art, music, Passport to Tomorrow, PE, those are not given capacity because when students leave their homeroom, nobody fills in. So really we're only counting the general homerooms as our capacity plus any special ed spaces.
this is more of a theoretical question. I feel like I'm just talking here. You've gone through this, it said hundreds of times. What kind of insight can you provide? I guess overview or insight as a board, as a community, as to what to expect in the sense to where how intrusive, typically less intrusive? I know it's kind of a loaded question, but are there any insights you can provide, like as we go through this process, to be mindful of?
Well, I can tell you it'll be okay. There's going to be feedback, and some of it will not be positive. People very rarely are willing to do something for the greater good if it moves their family, even if it means perfectly balanced schools or demographics or something like that. So it can be a tough process. what we're going to try to do, we'll have options that do all of the things. Like, we'll have an option that moves the fewest number of students. We'll have options that align with the criteria better than that. We'll probably take a criteria and focus on that throughout options, and so we'll have options specifically tailored to that. As we get through it, it'll get easier. The initial options are usually kind of tumultuous because there's a lot of movement, and as we begin to narrow down, things will get more positive. So everything will be okay. I just
No,
I've done
for
this a
people
lot
to
of
hear,
times.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
You're
we
gonna
have
get-
confidence that we're
Yeah.
doing the right thing for the
Oh,
right
absolutely.
reasons. It's just to communicate it outward in terms of how can people receive and what they can expect and how the process will go. So I
I'm
appreciate
also
it.
curious, during the COVID period, we had children at home, and there still are issues with not having access to the internet. As a district, will we have like a space where if you don't have that, you could come in here and do a survey?
You
That
could
will
do a
be-
hand survey,
That
sure.
would be available
Mhm.
to people,
Yep.
just so we could
We
say
could do that.
everybody had a way to be
Opportunity.
included.
And
Yeah.
really, that is the way their voice can be heard right now, is through that survey. And that's going to be, as soon as Karen's finished tonight, the information's going out. Yeah.
Okay. No, that sounds good,
Mhm.
because
And-
it is very important for people to
To
look at
share their
this.
voice.
Yeah.
And as I said, even if you're not impacted, please, please, please respond to our surveys. We want to hear from everybody.
And there's one community engagement in December. Is that the only one? Did I see that there was another opportunity later in the process, or is it just the one in December?
It'll just be the
The
one
one in
community
December.
meeting, but we'll do something similar with a survey and have that open for a couple of weeks, especially if it butts up to the holiday break. We'll probably have it go all of holiday break, because why not, if we're not going to be doing anything. So we will have another opportunity for feedback, but that's further down once we get options figured out in the first place.
And where's that community meeting going to be? Do we know yet?
We don't have the details yet. We
Okay.
still have to pin down the date, and probably the community center.
Or
At the high
main
school.
room? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, or the high school.
Community room.
And then Wolpert's there to have,
Yes.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if we know we're going to have a larger crowd, we'll make sure we have the space for that
Yeah.
larger crowd. Yeah. Could be in the auditorium.
And this website will be accessible by all parents?
And
all
it's live
families?
now.
Okay.
Yeah. I think on the website, we have FAQs, we have the presentation, it's starting to build.
Okay.
All of this data that you see, there will be a whole report with it that includes explanations, because some of it requires some explanation, so we'll have all of that on there as well for folks.
Karen, I had a question for you. I tried to prep somewhat before today's presentation just to kind of go through, but I don't think I've done enough homework. So one of the questions I have, when I look at the capacity study itself, are your assumptions here, because you mentioned about the utilization, is the assumption behind these numbers to send kids back, is that the numbers we're looking at, back to their home schools, or does this factor in that we would be building a K-6 building?
No,
I-
this is as is today.
As is today. So we
Yes.
haven't actually made the next step in terms of what that capacity would look like if it were a K-6 building in the lines. That's where I got confused.
So all of the capacities within the presentation are representative of the K through 6 capacity at that building based on the programs that exist within each building today. Assuming that those programs are going to continue to exist moving forward, that's what we're working with the capacities. And then all of the enrollments are based on 24, 25 students, but it's based on where they live. I have every student plotted on a map, and if they reside within like Amanda Elementary, they are counted under Amanda Elementary. The exception is Central Academy, which we kind of just took out of the picture, assuming a similar number are going to continue to attend Central Academy moving forward. So those students are taken out of the enrollment numbers.
Okay. Yeah, I guess again, where I'm not putting this together is I'm looking at this in terms of policy choice. So if I choose path A, am I looking at shuttering a building with this data, or am I looking at path 2 where we're actually trying to create the design around a K-6 building? So that's where I'm trying to figure out, using the data set in those lines. You talked about utilization, if one building were to be repurposed or closed, how that may play out under the And maybe I'm reading too far into it at this point, so.
Yeah, with that, I mean, what we'll be doing, they will be K through 6 boundaries. That is what I've been charged with, is
Okay.
making K through 6 boundaries.
Okay.
It will probably explore looking at taking a school offline, what it does, but we are not there yet.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Yep.
Other questions? We do appreciate you
Good
undertaking this with
presentation.
us. We're excited. And so, no.
It's fascinating data. It really is.
It really is.
Good job. Presented
Yeah.
very well, very clear.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
And then also, any questions on the contract for Woolpert that's going to be later on in the okay. So I want to say, I mean, really, yep, a lot of the work and the information's already been, yep, she has everything she needs to proceed. So Karen, thank you so much. We'll be in touch.
Safe travels.
And safe
Yeah,
travels
thank
home. Yeah.
All right, moving along, we move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Anything to highlight, Mr. Bertram?
You got it. Who motioned for that? I'm sorry.
I made the motion, Todd
Todd
second.
seconded.
No, they're all standard contracts. We've had year over year.
Just the difference between the Amerigus contract and the
And
Maxim
Maxim.
Healthcare. Are they two different kind of providers, or is it just having a pool, a bigger pool?
It's both.
Okay.
So Maxim provider, they specialize more in going into the home and the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to extend appreciation to, I see an extended field trip for the high school
Basketball.
women's basketball team. I know a lot of effort goes into those types of field trips. I want to extend our appreciation to all the adults and who spend extra time making sure those things happen. Other questions, comments? If there are none, then Mr. Bertram?
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Under Human Resources, there's a Personnel Agenda B. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Thank you, Anita. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Todd. Any questions? Again, it's my brother. He's on every
Yeah.
agenda, it seems.
Mentor.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Abstain?
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
And Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
All right, for business this evening, there are contracts. One with Woolpert, professional service agreement. Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Thank you. In a second, please.
Second.
Any questions or comments? We just spent the last hour kind of understanding
Yeah.
the deepness of that type of work. And so if there are none, then Mr. Bertram?
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
There's a lease agreement with Butler County ESC for Head Start programs, excuse me. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Thank you. In a second, please.
Second.
Mr. Bertram or Ms. Hauser, can you just give a little insight in regards to this contract?
Sure. This is between Middletown and Butler County ESC. We now, if you recall, back when we had the community center, and due to the timelines, we had to, really look in a different direction for our preschool services. We were able to bring 5 units of early childhood preschool into our buildings, and what you see in front of you tonight is the contract, which allows Butler County ESC. They are servicing 78 children in Rosa Parks and Creekview, and this is really, it's just free of charge, and it outlines what Middletown's responsible for and what's Butler County. Yep, so we've been able to continue 5 of those programs.
Thank you. Any questions regarding this? No. All right, then Mr. Bertram.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Stewart?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes. That would bring us to committee reports. Ms. Hauser, any committees to report?
No report, no committees this time.
No committees this time. Then that would take us to Board of Education reports. And Mr. Moore, anything to throw out there this evening?
No particular comments tonight. I will say that I know that anytime we have conversations about redistricting and some of these issues sometimes can be a challenge, but I do hope that welcome folks to make their voices heard through the process, and also certainly hope that our work together, I know that we're aiming at the highest academic performance for our kids and families here in the district, and that is our intention. So look forward to having further conversation about this plan.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart, anything to report this evening?
Just ditto what Todd said. I hope that the community will really get engaged and involved with the redistricting process. It's going to be exciting. Looking forward to it.
You have to add, Mrs. Stewart and I had the privilege of going to Middletown High School and observing last Thursday.
That was such a fun
It
day.
was
That was such
exciting.
the extended learning,
Oh my gosh.
experiential learning.
What a fun time to go to school.
The high school, it was so structured, it was so organized, the students rather, were so polite. In some of the classes, they did not even really recognize we were there. They were so focused and engaged in their work. It really seems to be going well. Carmela is doing an amazing job. The school looked amazing. It was so clean and just in great shape. We were tickled pink, weren't we?
We were so excited.
Yeah,
It was just amazing what those teachers, well, the whole staff is doing over there. Those kids were engaged like I've never seen. They have time now to kind of think and explore. And we saw agricultural setting. We saw, what's the one I love, the crime,
All the cybersecurity.
cyber- Oh
Yeah,
my
security
gosh.
and-
Was that a Pringles can in a cybers class? I loved it. I loved it. It was,
It was impressive. So,
was.
I mentioned the community really needs to get out.
oh my gosh.
Give Carmela a call, visit the school and see what's going on because it was just
We're signed
very
up to go back in December, aren't we? In December, January, whatever.
And even the board, city council, it just would
Oh.
encourage folks to actually go out and see what's going on as opposed to assuming what's going on and to share the good news and to share how amazing the students, the staff, the building, the curriculum, it was all just very exciting to see and be a part of.
The biology class, it's always been biology. But there's more.
There's more.
There's more. I loved it.
And we're not exaggerating either.
No,
I'm
we're not.
Definitely not saying it because we sit on the board. It was
No.
actually, and you're getting tickled, but it was actually just really good to see. You hear stories sometimes about kids just running around and not learning and things not going as well as you would hope, and it was the exact opposite. The coffee shop, to see the kids
Oh.
engaged and participating in that and preparing for their, did it happen yet at the SORG?
No, it's
That's Thursday.
Thursday. The proceeds will go towards the SORG, and I think that's all of that activity and purchasing tickets for $5 is
And how different levels were working together.
student-sponsored activity.
You know,
So,
this
yeah.
group is working with this group and helping this group, and it all has a purpose, and they were all engaged, every one of them. And if you ever, what was that drink we had, the truck driver?
Yeah.
If you
Go to the
need a
coffee
truck
shop.
driver.
That's from
no.
the Night of the Living Dead.
If you can get a truck driver.
If you need a truck driver.
Get one.
Yeah.
Get one. All right.
Well, thank you for that. No, I want to raise up our Athletes of the Week, Lexi Graham, a sophomore cheerleader, and Gracie Lucas, a senior cheerleader. Been doing a great job on the cheerleading team. Amaran Bryant, a senior football player, leads second in the GMC with 7 sacks. He has 34 tackles. He's doing a great job, 24 solo tackles. David Childers is a soccer player on the varsity soccer team. He's a junior, and he's second in the GMC with 122 saves and third in the GMC with 5 shutouts. Sierra Hartman is a junior volleyball player. She is in the top 10 and kills aces and passes. And the Midi team is doing pretty well at 9 and 12 overall. And then Reese Rourke, a senior soccer player. I'm assuming she's a goalie. She has 223 saves. She's been getting fired at a lot, and she's stopping a lot of them too. And so congratulations to each of them. My daughter went to homecoming.
First
She's a
time.
freshman. It was kind of surreal, but wanted to just thank the staff who put together a really nice event at the high school, and to all the students who made good choices and had a good evening. And so, no. And to echo my colleagues, when you undertake a project like this, understand that we are going to work diligently to listen. And to understand all the different elements, understand the community and what the community is thinking and feeling, understand our staff and what they're thinking and feeling. And so we can make a reasoned decision that looks to the short term, but then also down the road in regards to how we can position ourselves academically, fiscally, to be great stewards. That's our goal. We need your help. We need to hear from staff. We need to hear from parents. We need to hear from students to understand the things that are on their minds. And so as we go through this process, it's just not a small group that is working together to make a big decision. It's a large group together collaboratively that is going to move this district forward. And we have an opportunity to really hopefully reboot some opportunities for young people.
And
So-
if you want a voice, go to the website. That's going to be
Answer the
your voice
survey.
in there. And it's important to have everybody's voice on there.
And so believe that we care. We care deeply about these kinds of things, and we're working for you in hope of making this decision the best for everyone. So, Mr. Bertram.
Yeah, I'd like to say I got some well-needed rest last week down in Destin, so I was out of the line of Milton. Thank goodness, being on the west side of the Panhandle, had beautiful weather. Sorry I couldn't bring it home with me. We're all feeling the effects of fall in Ohio now. And since it is fall, I also want to remind folks it is political season, and October 8th began early voting here in Ohio, so everyone 18 and above, I hope you're engaged. I hope you're registered and you're able to vote. You can get out now, or you can wait till the last day, November 5th, to vote.
Thank you.
Okay, very
Ms.
good.
Hauser.
So I would like to also echo about the redistricting, that this really, truly is, we value your voice. So please take the time to complete the survey. Staff members, we're having feedback sessions with administrators on Friday. If you have any ideas, share with your principals. Down the road, we're going to be working with your MTA and MCEA leadership. So your voice is very important. And like I was sharing before, it's been 13 years. So it's been a long time. So this is important work, and we value what you're thinking. So please share it, whether it's through the survey or through your peers or your leadership. So we value your voice. Also, along the lines of high school redesign, the new course catalog is going to be coming along this year. You're probably going to get to see the first version of that in November. So you're going to start to see how things are starting to move when it comes to high school redesign. If you recall, 25-26, that was the initial plan for rollout. So that's next year, believe it or not, 2025, 2026. So that's going to be coming up. So, and then just a big shout out to the high school staff and everyone that's been involved with the high school redesign project. It's pretty cool. And we always say, and when I say it is so much better to see it than hear about it. So if you ever have the opportunity and you want to go over, just let us know and we'll make it happen. So that's all I have.
If that is it, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you. A second, please.
Second.
Mr. Bertram.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Have a good evening.
There we go.